And Iowa County has to write the Iowa Firearms Coalition a big check. Hi, everybody. I'm John Mclaughlin. Welcome once again to our Warrior Wednesday segment. Back again with our president, Dave Funk. And the breaking news around Iowa this week has been Monroe County, a six-figure check headed toward the Iowa Firearms Coalition. And Dave, can you just kind of give us a little background on this case, and let's kind of walk through what happened starting almost 2 years ago to where we are today?
Exactly. 2 years ago, one of our members out in Monroe County stopped by his county board of supervisors meeting and said, hey, the Iowa preemption law doesn't allow you to have this sign that says no guns allowed, no weapons allowed in the building unless you provide screening and proper security, kind of like you'd find inside the checkpoints at an airport.
Right.
You know, you go through you're in a sterile area when you go through and you can't have any weapons. And they said, we don't care. And then he followed up again with them with an email. And then Richard Rogers, who's one of our board members and a volunteer lobbyist for us, we're all unpaid here at IFC. He reached out to the county attorney and the supervisors and said, hey, here's what the statute says. You know, you have to take these signs down. And they said, not only did they say pound sand in so many words, but then they sued us.
Yeah, they doubled down.
Yeah, they doubled down. JD was sued. We were named as a co-defendant in the suit. And it, as it worked its way through the legal process, and is clearly a very blatant attempt at chilling or getting citizens to not question what local officials were doing, elected officials. And let's never forget, the state legislature is the supreme, lawmaker in the state of Iowa. If you're in a city, a county, a school district, a park board, a library board, you still answer to the state legislature and the governor in the state of Iowa. And long story short, the initial portion of the litigation went through. And as Bill Gustav, our attorney, has eloquently stated over and over again, the judge not only asked, why are we here? He said, I can't even believe you brought this suit. These guys have, you don't have standings to sue these people. And yet they did. And the case was dismissed with prejudice almost a year ago now, or about a year ago. And then, but there was the First Amendment issue. And that is, government using its power to pound down people that point out to local officials, you can't do these things. It's against the law. And so after years,
JD was a well-respected member of his community. They not only sued him, they actually released the information from his concealed carry permit, made that public information.
Exactly. And that's another violation of Iowa law. One of the things IFC has successfully done is we've incrementally improved freedom for every Iowan over the last 10, 12, 14 years, was made permit data private. So your name, your date of birth weren't released to the public if anyone asked, does this person have a weapons permit, permit to carry weapons? And it's been private information. Law enforcement can get it as part of an ongoing criminal investigation. But otherwise, no one gets that information. The FBI can't come in and say, just give us a list of everybody with permits because we want to know. They can't do that in the state of Iowa. And so that happened to JD. He went through a lot of pressure from local citizens in his community. I mean, Monroe County is only 8,000 or 9,000 people. It's not like this is a place where you can live in anonymity. You know everybody. It's small town Iowa. And yet these Republican Board of Supervisors, a Republican county attorney, told us to pound sand. You're going to do what we say. And guess what? Not only, as I stated previously, was the suit thrown out, as it got close to trial, the insurance company figured out that, holy crap, we're going to have to pay IFC a lot of money. So let's settle this. So we knew we had won on the issue. We knew we had won on the law. And we basically get to tell people, hey, stand up for your rights. And if you're in a small town, if you're in anywhere, if you're in the city of Des Moines, if you're working for the state of Iowa somewhere and you decide to violate a citizen's civil rights, they're going to have recourse against you. And here's the perfect example why everyone in Iowa in government needs to follow what the state legislature lays down as the laws of the state of Iowa. This is a huge win. It's reverberating across the country.
I'm wondering if it will actually be respected, or will it be like the recent Bruin Supreme Court case where places like New York say, we don't care, we're going to do whatever we want?
Yeah, the state of New York, the governor out there has said after Bruin, which basically Bruin very clearly, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin said you can't put restrictions, unreasonable or any restrictions on a basic, what's essentially a human right, but it's enshrined in the Constitution, the Second Amendment. There are no two-step tests that they've been doing since the Heller decision was handed down a little over 10 years ago. And so Bruin, the state of New York, just gave a collective go screw yourself to the Supreme Court of the United States and said, well, we'll just double down. So we know it'll take a few years. But in the interim, a whole bunch of people in New York State, that's already pretty much a gun-free zone, is now absolutely, if you're a good guy with a permit for a gun and you walk into the wrong place, they're going to convict you of a felony. Meanwhile, New York City is one of the most dangerous cities in the world because they refuse to enforce the law. You know, this turnstile jumper the other day that beats a cop, chokes him out, and he's back on the street not even 3 hours later. Someone tried to assassinate a congressman, a sitting U.S. congressman running for governor. They let him out 3 hours later. If there were any level of reasonableness within the state of New York or the state of California, and we could touch Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts, if there was anyone reasonable in those places, they'd stand up and say, we're not being very smart here. Where there's freedom and accountability, people behave themselves and they're trustable. But places like New York, the citizens are the slaves to the criminals because the leadership, political leadership, elected leadership chooses not to enforce the law. Everything's upside down right now in America. And that's why this Monroe County versus IFC and JD Thompson is such a huge suit, because it shows the little guy can win against the massive bureaucracy.
And I'll just share a personal story, and you're probably aware of this, but IFC was notified that my very own hometown of Glidden, Iowa, at the city council chambers, City Hall had a sign that said weapons not allowed. They're like, have you checked into this? So I paid a personal visit, knocked on the door, went in, talked to them, and they basically were even unaware of what the law was. And the preemption goes way back, but it was most recently updated in 2020, so they should have known. But hey, I said, I don't want you guys to have to write a check to us like Monroe County is. That was on a Friday. By Monday, the sign was gone. The city council had met, and it was solved. And that's really the way it's supposed to work.
And one of the things IFC did today, and these are IFC funds that we're using for this. As we spread the word today, we're mailing out to every county supervisor and county attorney and city government across the state of Iowa to let them know what happened in this suit. Here's what the statute says. Please come into compliance, because we don't want our members to have to chase around. I mean, we not only represent our thousands of IFC members in Iowa, we also represent every good citizen in the state of Iowa, every law-abiding citizen. And we've seen enough bad things happen around the world when government becomes overreaching. As Michael Ware said today, when he quoted Neil Smith, longtime Democrat congressman in the state of Iowa, very respected former Army lieutenant colonel. I met Neil years ago as a young Army officer in the Iowa Guard. As he said, when the government doesn't want to trust you, someone in government doesn't want to trust you with a firearm, why in John Moses Browning's name, why would you comply with what they were asking you to do? And it was, that quote says it all. They don't trust you.
I just put up Michael's blog on the screen here for folks to see. If you haven't been to the IFC webpage or our Facebook page, it says Monroe County versus IFC, Goliath versus David. So that's what Dave's referring to. So go in and read this article, and it really does a nice job of not only summarizing the Monroe County case, but just what you've said. It really is the little guy, the volunteer, 2A group taking on big government right now, and we're winning. Not only New York State Rifle and Pistol, but IFC taking on Monroe County.
Right here in Iowa. And this brings to light the very important point that we've got this Freedom Amendment. It'll be the only ballot initiative. Flip your ballot over on November 8th and vote yes. And the right to keep and bear arms is not in the Iowa Constitution. It's only in the U.S. Constitution. We're one of only 6 states. And I'm going to ask you not only to flip the ballot over on November 8th and vote yes, but tell your friends about it. And go to the ifcpac.org webpage and give us $10 or $20, or preferably $22.22 for 2022
There
or
you go.
$20.22 to help us, because we're seeing millions of dollars pour into the state of Iowa to try and defeat a constitutional amendment. Why would anyone fight to reduce freedom in this day and age? You know,
Yeah,
we live
I
in
don't get it.
dangerous times. The reason, you know, in World War II, Iowans were mailing their rifles and shotguns and pistols to Brits, to Great Britain, so they could defend their shores from a Nazi invasion. This day and age, the world is just as dangerous as it was in the late 1930s and 1940s when we were involved in World War II. Why would any of us give up our firearms in this day and age? It's very important to pass the Freedom Amendment. It enshrines our rights in the state of Iowa, our constitutional carry, all of the other laws that have incrementally opened up and improved our freedoms here in Iowa and recognized them. That's why it's very important to pass the Freedom Amendment November 8th. Flip the ballot over, vote yes, and go give us $20.22 on the ifcpac.org page so we can finish out our campaign plan. We need a few $100,000 more to get there, and any help any one of you watching this tape tonight could do to help would be wonderful.
Yeah, we really need to point out that, you know, we are a volunteer group. Nobody gets a salary. Even Richard Rogers, who's our lobbyist, he works countless hours for free, just out of the goodness of his heart on behalf of Iowa. And so please consider joining IFC. This year, we've seen a huge spike in our lifetime members, and we appreciate that very much, because without the funds, even like you said, $20, $30 at a time, you know, we can't file these lawsuits and stand for freedom when the government does overreach. So it's really a victory, not just for IFC and for JD, but as you mentioned, the entire state today. And that's only possible because of our members and donors out there.
Exactly. And don't kid yourself, this Monroe versus IFC and JD Thompson, this is going to send shockwaves across local governments around the country that you can do these things. You can harass your citizens, but it comes at a price. Some states, the elected officials are held personally liable. Iowa is not one of those. We're speaking with our legislative representatives about updating the law further to hold people personally responsible. Because, you know, if you're a county supervisor, if you're on a library board and you violate someone's civil rights, you're just going to send the bill to the taxpayers. Well, we need to hold these people personally liable. If you want to be an elected official, if you want the responsibility, or excuse me, if you want the authority, you need to accept the responsibility and the liability that goes with it. John, you and I are both professional pilots. We've spent our whole lives flying airplanes, and we only get to make one mistake that kills us. We don't, you know, we're held responsible right at that moment. And I expect a doctor to perform professionally, an attorney, an accountant, a plumber, you know, an electrician. We need to hold our elected officials and our civil servants to those same standards.
Yep. And we want to give a special hat tip to JD Thompson down there in Monroe County, the citizen who really bore the brunt of the harm from this. You know, his name was slandered in the local press down there. He had all kinds of, you know, persecution from the Board of Supervisors, and, you know, the portion of the settlement that he's getting, which, you know, is the lion's share of it, which is the way it should be. That'll never, you know, pay him back for all the stress and hardship he's gone through. But we just want to thank him for being a patriot, for hanging in there, for trusting IFC to go to bat for him, and certainly hope that this chapter can end now and he can go back to a normal life down in, which is a fantastic county. I mean, Albia, what a great city. Hopefully he can kind of get his life put back together down there again.
It's just east of my home in Melcher, Dallas, and I love living out in the country, and Albia is literally right down the road, you know, on G76, not far from me at all. It's a great place, and hopefully the adults in the room out there in Marion County will learn their lesson here and act like adults and be responsible and be held accountable when they need to be.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. Monroe County kind of hopefully be a little warning shot across the bow to the other counties in Iowa that might try something similar. So thank you very much. If you are not a member right now of the Iowa Firearms Coalition, it's iowafc.org. So check us out there. This has been another Warrior Wednesday presentation where every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Time, we bring you news, Second Amendment newsmakers out there, and try to keep you up to date what's going on in our 2A community. So thanks again, and we will see you next week.